Sin City, Scott Drew, and Baylor men's basketball in Las Vegas this week against Virginia and maybe Matthew Myers, Illinois. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. That's Brandon McKinnon from Our Daily Bears. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Brandon, I would like to, I'm bundled up, by the way, transparently, kind of a bit of a red nose. I've warmed up a bit. Transparently just came from McLean Stadium, home of the Baylor football team, where the boys of Alpha Tau Omega, the men of Alpha Tau Omega, of which you are a part, are competitive intramural football champions.
Yeah, clap it up. You mentioned in the intro we're talking Vegas basketball, but this is actually a Locked On Baylor podcast about Baylor intramurals. So welcome, everybody. We're talking intramural flag football. Excellent evening.
Intramural volleyball, which ATO also won. Intramural everything else, ATO is probably going to win. They beat KOT. What a shame. Not KOT, the social club. Yes, they did. They beat KOT. If you're a KOT alum and you're listening, which is inevitable for somebody, I'm sorry, but I was obligated to say that as a current ATO, as a senior who just watched his fraternity win the intramural basketball championship.
You can't see where his camera cuts off, but his feet are literally being held to the fire. It's not Drake's fault. Don't hold.
Kind of what I have to do here.
Yep.
I also am unveiling, people listening on podcasts, I'm sorry, you're not going to get this, but unveiling a new piece here with the Sailor Bear. This is a new little addition to the old repertoire in the closet.
We love a Sailor Bear.
Sailor Bear merch is my favorite. None of you came to listen to my intramural stories or my Sailor Bear jacket. You instead came to listen to Brandon and I talk about basketball, which Baylor is good at right now, and Baylor has been for a long time, actually. Scott Drew's 400th win came on the weekend against Northern Colorado and just an insane blowout.
Against his nephew, which is fun.
Against his nephew, who
Thanksgiving bragging rights.
was really funny. His nephew played pretty bad, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And then Scott comes to the press conference like, "I promise, guys, he's not that bad. He's usually a lot better than that," which I thought was super cool. This team, though, is and I asked Adam Flagler, and I shouldn't have posed it the way that I posed it in the press conference. It was a bad question, honestly, about how the depth of this team stacks up to teams he's been with in the past. Because to me, it's the most deep team probably that Scott Drew has had. I was having a conversation with a guy who's followed Baylor basketball for a while and just said, they didn't have the firepower coming off the bench they do today for most of Drew's tenure. And Flagler said he doesn't like to play a comparison game, which makes a ton of sense. But to me, this team is so good because of its depth. And when you go into a weekend where you're playing back-to-back days against back-to-back, probably top 15 Ken Pom teams, you're going to need that depth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we've seen so much out of the bench in the first 3 games of the year, and I understand the competition level is not what it's going to be this weekend. That's fair. That's what these first 3 games are for. I mean, you're looking around and teams are playing lesser opponents to get ready. Shout out TCU.
Some teams are losing to lesser opponents, by the way.
So we don't take these wins for granted. But no, in all seriousness, like the bench depth has been incredible. I think the only hole you maybe poke is like Josh O may not be ready yet. But again, that's what this is for, right? That's why we're playing these teams. We're looking at Virginia for sure, and then the winner or loser potentially of UCLA and Illinois. We play one of those. And I think it'll be a good test for the team. And really, we're not expecting, I mean, we talked about this on one of our earlier pods this year. We're not expecting Baylor to enter into February undefeated. Like a loss is going to come, and I think that's good. But the depth is definitely a total plus, and we're going to see it really play out against some teams that, I was looking at some of the numbers, and UCLA only had their 5 starters play 20 or more, average 20 or more minutes, and then 1 bench guy. Baylor really, as we've talked about, can go 8 deep, maybe 9. It's going to be a huge plus.
Brandon, I want to get so look, for those that are listening today and thinking, "Oh, Baylor plays TCU in football today." That's probably, I don't know why they sound like that, but in my head they sound like that. The people that are thinking that they do play TCU football this week, and that's a point of conversation the rest of the week. But I want to hone in on the team that's doing really well right now in Baylor basketball because of how big these matchups are. But for that person that's listening that hasn't really gotten into basketball season yet, which is in full swing with the game against West Virginia, who's a top number 6 in Ken Pom, what is the identity of this team? What, because they probably just heard you say Josh O and thought, what? Or even Keontae George.
Yeah. And for clarity, Virginia, I know you misspoke with saying West Virginia, but yes, Virginia on Friday. You did.
Definitely not the number 6 Ken Pom team in America.
Basement of the Big 12. But yeah, I mean, for anybody who's in football mode, I get it. But Baylor plays Virginia, who it's going to be a top 10 KenPom matchup, a top 20 AP matchup.
Yeah.
Virginia is very undervalued by the AP, to be honest, on Friday. So the day before we play TCU. So get excited, get ready. But the identity of Virginia is really just a veteran team. It's what you're going to see game in and game out. What they've been for the last, probably decade, really. It's great defense, just really great team defense, no individual defender that jumps off the page at you, but a cohesive unit. And they're going to make their shots. They're going to run a great offense. It's really a great team. There's no one great player, in my opinion, that's going to be a huge issue. So it's going to come down to Baylor defending as a team. And it's worth noting, and I think we should call out, like, everyone's pretty familiar with the tragedy that's gone on at University of Virginia. I'm not trying to beat it at horse or be negative, but as an athletics department, they're playing for those guys, right?
Yeah,
and
100%.
And so I think there's going to be a lot of energy around the Virginia program. And anytime you play a team of that caliber, it's going to be tough. But to be honest, to answer your question, their identity is truly a great team. There's not a great player like, this guy's going to cook us tonight. It's how do we shut down their 5 on the court at a given time.
What is Baylor's identity too?
Man, it's hard to not say a 3-point shooting team.
Yeah,
with the stats that we've seen. I mean, they're throwing up threes at a high level and they're hitting them. But really, I think Baylor, what stuck most out to me, right, when you're playing a lesser opponent, any team can cook on offense. The things that are sticking out to me are the buy-in on defense. Keontae George, 5-star recruit, one of the highest recruits in Baylor history, a guy that has a real chance and probably will be a lottery pick, is taking charges. Like, he took 4 charges against Northern Colorado, or 3. If fact checkers out there, if I'm off by 1 charge, whatever. But it's like, that's the buy-in. It's truly the identity of the team is really that culture that Drew has been forming for years, and everyone has bought in. You have guys like Keontae playing defense, Adam Flagler playing defense. Flo is still a veteran leader. I mean, it really is a great unit on both ends of the floor.
When I think of like college sports fans, I think of my dad, and that's kind of how who I tailor a lot of my content to. My father's a big deer hunter, loves to deer hunt. Arkansas, hunts to eat kind of deal. Like, growing up, runs over a squirrel, brings it home. That's dinner. That's gross. I'm not that way. And he does not care about Arkansas Razorback basketball near as much as football. So until football season ends, he's not going to really get into it. But he would if, like, Arkansas was playing an early season game against a big team. So I'm sure there are a lot of Baylor fans that didn't care about Northern Colorado or Norfolk State or Mississippi Valley State. And I would not fault you for that. So to give you a perspective, this is a Baylor team. A lot of threes. They took 38 threes against Norfolk State and 19 shots that weren't threes. So they love to jack it up from deep, and they can hit 3-pointers too. LJ Cryer's finally gotten back into a groove, and Adam Flagler's going to hit it from deep. Jalen Bridges, who's a new addition from West Virginia, can also shoot the ball really well. Caleb Lohner's taking a ton of threes. Dale Bonner's taking a ton of threes. Dale Bonner had an insane game against Northern Colorado a couple nights ago. So it's a Baylor squad that has a lot of older guys, a couple transfers who add into the mix that also bring a little experience to the table, and then the young guys like Joshua Oceanwuna, who's a backup, who's lanky, uncoordinated, but has a ton of ceiling, high side potential, and then another guy in Keontae George, who's super young and brings a big spark to the team. You're looking at a squad that shoots a lot of threes. Everybody on the floor except for Flo Thamba can hit a 3-pointer, most likely. Joshua Oceanwuna and Flo Thamba being the two that probably shouldn't. But fun to watch. Just a fun brand of basketball.
And I think, when we were in that post-game presser against Norfolk State, when it really jumped off the page when you're looking at the box score, 2/3 of your shots were threes. Yeah. I think Coach Drew made a great point. I think it was you that actually asked the question about the percentage of threes taken. It wasn't the shots weren't taken outside of the offense. It's not like we're coming down 2 dribbles, 1 pass, 3, with 20 seconds left on the clock. They're playing within the confines of the offense to where the defense at Norfolk State was in a lot of zone. It was a lot of passing, a lot of dribble cuts, and the threes were coming with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, 10 seconds at most. It's not bad shots, but they're taking them because the guys are going to knock them down at a high level. It's a fun brand of basketball, and what's the best news is when they miss, they're back on defense, playing hard. I think Dale Bonner had 6 steals against Northern Colorado. Yeah. It doesn't matter the level of opponent. That is a staunch number.
Speaking of staunch, Brandon, you know what I'm staunchly supportive of?
I could guess on the ad. Should I?
No, it is LinkedIn Talent Solutions today. That is what I'm staunchly in support of. Also, it reminds me of Matthew Meyer, who we'll get to later in the podcast, who Baylor might see this weekend, that LinkedIn is like a transfer portal, but for jobs. So you need somebody to come work for you. Well, you need someone to enter the job transfer portal. They need to leave their job, or if they're the unemployment portal, if you will, to come work for you. Why not use LinkedIn Talent Solutions? Because LinkedIn Talent Solutions is super easy. I, in the last week, have been a part of hiring program for 2 new Inside the Bears members. One who is going to be a fantastic young writer, a freshman at Baylor. The other is a Baylor junior who is so good at multimedia, takes unbelievable pictures and unbelievable videos. He's going to add a complete great content side to what we put out at our Daily Bears, or Inside the Bears. Brandon's our Daily Bears. You guys can't have him. And all of that's thanks to LinkedIn Jobs, Talent Solutions. Hashtag hiring frame is super easy to set up right now, and small businesses rate number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified people you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Keep in mind, terms and conditions do apply. Sorry, Brandon, you cannot have our multimedia content creator.
I was gonna ask who this is and see if he was available and see if he was posting his job resume on LinkedIn Jobs.
It's too late. We already took his resume. He was posting it to us, and we hired him. Brandon, this weekend, and I know we've already kind of gotten into this Baylor-Virginia matchup a little bit, and I want to get further into some of the storylines as well. But first, to hone in on this matchup and give people a look at what they need to know about Virginia and Baylor and what happens when they hit the floor, it's Tony Bennett. I mean, this is a Virginia team that's kind of been at the top of college basketball over the course of the last decade or so, and historically Ralph Sampson. And then the last 2 years, they've kind of sucked. Like, they won a national championship, and they're like, all right, sweet, we're good. That was fun, everybody. Bye.
It was like, we lost to a 16, we won a natty, and like, wipe your hands. We're good.
Too much for us. This is the ups and the downs. We're going to take a couple years off. See you later. And in the wake of that, Baylor wins a national championship. The Big 12 wins 2 in a row. Now Virginia is old again. And every time Virginia gets old, they're freaking good. And this team feels like the AP is really undervaluing them currently. And you've already mentioned they've got a legitimate shot to knock off Baylor with a lot of emotion at play after a shooting near their campus.
Yeah, you mentioned the old team. They're starting 2 juniors and 3 seniors.
Yeah.
And Baylor's starting some veteran guys too. The only freshman we're starting is Keontae. So there's leadership there, but these are guys that have been in Bennett's system for years. And I mentioned a little bit earlier on, the thing that makes Virginia great is how they play as a unit and how they play within Bennett's system. There's rarely going to be a possession where we watch one guy go one-on-one with one of our defenders, which is both good and bad because they move the ball so well in offense that they really expose holes on the defense. And then on defense, they move so well together that it's tough to find a great shot. So I think it is going to be a tough matchup. They're averaging, allowing 51 points per game. Yeah. Granted, they've played North Carolina Central and Monmouth. But, I think it's going to be a good matchup. The only thing that they don't do super well is they're not a great rebounding team. They only have one guy that's above 6'5" that's in the rotation, but also Baylor's not a great rebounding team either. So I think it's going to be a pretty even match, but Baylor should come out on top. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, Flo Thamba's been a little and you had made we did a lot of these overreactions on a podcast last week about Baylor basketball and some of the gaudy stats that guys could put up, and Flo Thamba having double-digit rebounds per game this season, which I balked at, and looks like pretty clear that's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, that's on me. Hand up.
But by virtue of Caleb Lohner pulled down a ton of boards in the game against Northern Colorado on Monday. Keontae George pulled down a ton of boards, and you've got everybody kind of rebounding by committee, which has worked out well for Baylor. Right now, though, on ESPN, Virginia and Baylor, which is an ESPN 2 game at 6 p.m., Baylor Bears 71% chance to win this game, which that's not bad. Against a Virginia team averaging 81 points per game, shooting the ball at about a 50% rate, and currently 6.5 steals per game. Brandon, I don't know if you knew this. Baylor averages 13 steals per game, twice as many as Virginia. Defense is not new to Scott Drew, but this kind of defense is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I think we're going to cause their offense issues. I mentioned that they play well as a team, and it depends on a lot of movement. Kai Clark, I believe is how you say his first name. He's a legitimate tier 1 college point guard. Like, he's a senior.
Yeah.
He's been there for a long time. He's going to find the right plays. He's going to dribble through people and find the right passing lane. But I do think our defense will cause issues for some of their secondary ball handlers.
Yeah.
13 steals might be gaudy against a top 10 Ken Pom team.
Yeah.
But I do think we'll be disruptive on the defensive end, and it'll lead to fast break buckets. And if not, it'll easily to stops for sure.
You think, and we're going to talk storylines and even UCLA and Matthew Meyer and that prospect in the third segment, but do you feel worried at all about this game for Baylor?
The biggest thing that worries me is the emotional momentum, like, and it's fair, and it sucks. And
we
it's
are Marshall.
sad,
We've all seen the movie,
and, and Rudy, the longest
literally
yard, all the emotional. No, I'm just kidding. But it does suck. And I'm not trying to undermine, the tragedy is insane. It really is sad. And it's something that I love about Scott Drew, but I could see Scott Drew going in and being like, Tony, can I pray over your team? And that's awesome. That's one thing I love about Baylor, but the players are playing for something bigger than the main event Continental Tire Tournament or whatever it is we're playing in.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest threat to me, but also I don't think that they're as talented as we are. I think that we are equally as well coached, if not better than they are. And I really expect what Keontae did at Global Jam in Canada when the lights were bright and it was Baylor against the entire world. It's said in jest, but that's what the ESPN graphic said. I feel like Keontae is that guy that plays better when the lights are bright, and he hasn't shot the ball super well in his first 3 games. I look to see him have a big game against Virginia Friday. And if not, the supporting cast, Adam Flagler, LJ Cryer, these great players will.
Keontae George's first opportunity to play for Baylor on ESPN in a regular season game. And the lights will be bright in Las Vegas against a top 20 opponent for sure. If Baylor's able to beat Virginia, they'll likely I hope they get Illinois. The winner of Illinois and UCLA. We're only going to predict Baylor playing Illinois, win or lose, because the storylines there are unbelievable. But before that, the storylines right now, today, at betonline.net are unbelievable. Unbelievable. Because the number one storyline is that the Baylor Bears are only 3-point dogs to TCU. David Fankhauser, if you've ever seen stuff, our Daily Bears guy as well. I love our Daily Bears. Can I say that? They're like a competitor, air quotes, but their guys are insane. They're all so good at what they do. If they ever want to work for Inside the Bears, I'm not in the business of poaching, but gosh dang it, they're good. Fank posted the other day on Twitter that Baylor's played 7 Big 12 games and that in 6 of them, the team that was favored lost. TCU's favored this week. The only game that didn't happen was Baylor was favored at home against Kansas and won. Baylor was favored against Kansas State and lost. He also posted that in 2012, Baylor played 10-0 Kansas State. That was a Baylor win. 2015, 10-0 Oklahoma State, Baylor win. Now, the next time Baylor plays a 10-0, the third Big 12 10-0 team, the third team somehow gets to see Baylor in Game 11. That's this Saturday. History says Baylor's going to win, and history right now you can bet on at betonline.net. Baylor 3-point dogs. You go there, check out great podcasts, great lines, and everything at betonline.net. It is where the game starts. Brandon, I am almost – I think the reason I'm so confident about this basketball game and Baylor winning this basketball game is because – in the last couple of years under Scott Drew, kind of dating back to my freshman year, I remember watching ESPN broadcasts, listening to the games they were playing in. I think they were in South Carolina. Maybe they were in Conway, South Carolina. They were somewhere over there playing one of these tournament games, and Fran Fraschilla was on the call. And I just remember thinking, does Baylor win every tournament game they play in these? And I don't think they've lost one since I got to college. They're just really good at these pre-conference tournaments. And I think that's why I have them winning this one 2-0 as well.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Drew definitely gets you guys ready no matter what day it is. And yeah.
Was it Atlantis last year? Was it Atlantis?
I think, yeah, we were back in the Bahamas last
Michigan
year.
State, where they beat Michigan State. And
VCU as well.
Maybe, yeah, that sounds right.
I do remember my biggest memory from that was when we were first exposed to Jeremy Sohan with a gold afro. Blonde afro against real competition, and he caught that alley-oop. I was, oh my gosh, I miss Jeremy Sohan. For anyone who's read my stuff, they know my affinity for Jeremy Sohan. Miss that guy,
who's a really good Spur, by the way.
He is.
Popovich moved into point guard.
I saw that quote.
As a
I feel
rookie.
like every time we're on here, we're digressing, which is fine because we're still talking
basketball.
About Baylor, but
also, the fact that Pop was like, "Yeah, he's a point guard now." They're like, they're like, "Pop, what?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just kind of gonna throw him in the fire."
And what's wild is Scott Drew did that when James Akinjo had his buttocks injury, as we're all familiar.
His buttocks was hurt for a long time, man. That buttocks thing lingered.
You want to talk about bad questions? Was that post game against Norfolk when I was afraid to reference a tailbone or buttocks when Jalen Bridges was up there, and I said, "Yeah, you hurt your back," and he was like, "Hurt my tailbone." And I was like, "I'm not going to say buttocks again."
Buttocks. Yeah, that's good.
Anyway, to Vegas. So let's assume we beat Virginia. Right, we've kind of talked about it.
Which is good. It just has to happen because Baylor's never lost a midseason. What do we even call these tournaments? What do you call them? Classics, whatever.
Preseason tournaments, I guess.
Not even preseason. It's like pre-conference tournaments. What I'm going to dub it, I guess. And again, they have not lost a game in one of these since I got to college. So they beat Virginia on Friday because again,
let's just say they've never lost one of these, huh?
Ever in history. Remember that Louisville game? Insane Louisville game in the Bahamas.
Yeah. So let's assume we beat Virginia. We will play the winner of UCLA and Illinois, both of which would be incredible storylines, in my opinion, right? You have UCLA led by Tiger Campbell, Jaime Yaquez.
Is he still there?
He is. He's still their point guard, and so is Jaime Yaquez. They're both, they have a very old team.
Weren't they supposed to win the national championship last year?
They were, yeah. Everyone thought so, and so did I. And with Bet Online, I missed that one.
Mick Cronin.
But so, I mean, you have UCLA, who has a lot of veteran leadership. They're still a very potent offense. They play great game. Jaime Yaquez is a true 4, which is interesting in college basketball this year. We're not seeing a lot of that. So UCLA is that team that's going to play half court, really on both ends of the ball, in my opinion, from what I've seen on tape. Illinois is the complete opposite. It's a team that's going to push. Terrence Shannon Jr., who we should remember from Texas Tech last year. He was injured, but he transferred to Illinois, now very healthy. Matthew Myers in the starting rotation for Illinois. And then a name that Baylor fans should remember is Dainja. He transferred in the middle of the year last year to Illinois and practiced every day against Kofi Coburn, and he is their second leading scorer behind TJ Shannon, playing great basketball as the 5 for Illinois.
Dainja is their second leading scorer at Illinois?
He is. He had a 20 and 15 game in their most recent game. He's a problem.
Dainja?
He's a problem. So I mean,
he didn't play a lot for the old Baylor Bears.
Well, I actually talked about this with a friend. Like he still is very much a post-up player, and that's just not Scott Drew's offense. So I think it was the right move for him to transfer, as hard as it was to see him go, because he's a great talent.
Right.
But
yeah,
the thing, let's look at both teams. If we play Illinois, a reason why I think that Baylor could win is Illinois averages 14 turnovers per game to 17 assists. And they've played Eastern Illinois, Kansas City, and Monmouth. Yeah. And I feel like Baylor feasts on that. And then against UCLA, quite frankly, I don't know that UCLA can keep up with our offense. And so it's really going to be a battle of either team is great. Both of them are, in the top 25 in KenPom. None of these games are going to be scrub games to scoff at. So it'll be awesome either way. What do you think?
I think, Wow. Yeah, that schedule's not great. I'm just now pulling up a lot of my Illinois stuff to see what this team's done this season. And might I say, shocked by a lot of what I'm seeing. Because, like you said, Terrence Shannon leads the team in points right now, 22.7 per game, which is really, really good.
He's been like he's actually been nasty. Right. Like he is a problem.
I do want to kind of go back to what you said about Dainja not really fitting into the Scott Drew system, which I think is true to say, honestly. Like, remember Azubuike that played for Kansas?
Yeah.
I don't think he would have been very good at Baylor.
No.
Just because Scott Drew doesn't want a true 1980s power big on the inside. He just wants somebody nimble indoors that could, get a rebound every now and then. He doesn't Scott Drew, 15 rebound guy, hasn't really been a thing the last couple of years.
I mean, look at the transfer portal. There were a ton of awesome post players where we were like, oh, we could use this, especially if John's out. And Scott's like, no, the answer to what I want is Caleb Lohner.
Yeah, Caleb Lohner, Jalen Bridges, who are big guys, but not post players.
Which is fine because it complements our guards. Yeah.
And Flo Thamba's also not an Azubuike, I am bigger than you, I will dominate you, except for April 5th, 2021, the greatest game in Flo Thamba history. Yes. I've gotten down a rabbit hole. Dainja, you're right. You wouldn't have been wrong. He's insane. 9.7 rebounds per game and 3 blocks per game. Matthew Meyer, this guy's old, man. And he's only playing 16 minutes a game.
Dude, I saw that. I was shocked. I was like, is he coming off the bench? He's a starter.
3 rebounds.
Yeah.
He's a starter?
Yeah.
He actually?
He started every game for them. He plays 16 minutes per game, 5 points.
Dude, brother, man, what is going on?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I really want us to play Illinois, but I feel like we're going to play UCLA, and I'm going to be bummed. That's what my gut's telling me.
That's fine. I just don't wow. Oh, geez. Brad Underwood, though. Taking the transfer portal, going to Scott Drew and saying, I'll take what you don't want. Going to the Big 12 and saying, I'll take what you don't want.
Yeah.
So Baylor, Illinois, Virginia, UCLA this weekend. Brandon.
That's what we're predicting. That's what we're going with.
Oh, I was just naming the teams, honestly.
Oh, I thought you were saying sorry, go ahead.
What are your final thoughts?
I feel like we beat Virginia. So we play Virginia Friday. I feel like we beat Virginia.
Yeah.
The tournament's off on Saturday to acknowledge college football.
Really?
And then the championship and consolidation is on Sunday. Dude, I want to play Illinois. I really do, but I feel like we're going to play UCLA. And I think that's going to be a very interesting game if we play UCLA, just because the natures of both offenses and defenses are very different.
UCLA scares me, by the way, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good. They're a really good team, but I think they're going to try and slow it down, and it'll just be interesting to see how we play against a team that really controls the pace of the game, because we've done that and it's been fast. So I think Baylor wins it all. I think we beat UCLA. I think we make a statement, and we all go into Thanksgiving happy. And then December 2nd, Gonzaga, South Dakota. That's the next big thing on the calendar.
Fewest points Baylor scored in a game this season is 87.
I have a feeling that we will see fewer than that, either Friday or Sunday.
At some point, yes.
Yeah.
That's Brandon McKenna from our Daily Bears. I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. Brandon, thank you for joining the show as always.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
We're going to go follow him at Brandon Mack. It's Brandon with an E, by the way. This has been, when you come back tomorrow, we're going to have Steven Simcox on the show. A lot of you have heard of Steven Simcox. We worked at 1660 here in Waco for a little bit. Now he hosts Locked On Horned Frogs. So we're going to talk TCU and Baylor, because all you people want to hear about football. Oh, football this, football that's basketball season. This has been, thank you for making it your first listen every single day, Locked On Baylor.